Before 1978, it was the Pac-8. Then it was the Pac-10 before, of course, the addition of Colorado and Utah. Now we're back down to the Pac-10 and possibly within, I don't know, weeks or months, back down to the Pac-8. I guess what we're trying to teach you is that history repeats itself. And the more things stay the same, the more they change or vice versa. We are talking Oregon football. We're talking the Pac-12. We're talking all of college football, and it's so interconnected at this point. We're probably going to mention about 37 different scenarios and teams along the way for Oregon Ducks Live right here at the Voice of College Football. Two of my very favorites here, Mike Black, fifth quarter college football, and CFB home as well. Ryan Winter, this is the way to do it right here. Look at this from the golf course. Ryan Winter, Sports Chef 503. How'd you shoot today?
Let's go.
How'd you
I was
play
like
today?
I was like 4 over. You know, I was just hanging out drinking beers. But I've been playing a lot of golf out here, out on the edge of the Pacific, out on the edge of the continent. So we're out here in pretty much no man's land, kind of like the Pac-12, Mark.
Next time I'm out there, Ryan, we're gonna play
probably a pretty good course. I already knew this, but Ryan's got some skills. He's got game.
Oh, Ryan's got game, huh?
Yeah, I think he knows what he's doing out there, and hopefully we still have him. So while we're waiting for Ryan, there he is. Hopefully you can hear us, Ryan.
Yeah, I can hit the ball around a little bit. More
yeah,
importantly,
I thought so.
That I'm talking about a really different game.
Yeah, let's talk about what's gone on in the last 24 hours, because if you guys are like me, I'm thinking I shouldn't be shocked, because 1 year ago, Texas, Oklahoma left the Big 12 for the SEC, and we were hearing things like USC, UCLA to the Big 10, and then possibly Oregon, Washington could be a match for the Big 10 as well. And then things settled down, and we got through another college football season, and then we had thoughts of other things possibly happening, and then all of a sudden we get slammed with USC and UCLA to the Big 10, and it just, wow. Mike, I'll start with you. Your impressions of what transpired yesterday.
Well, first of all, you should never be surprised with Pac-12 after dark. There's never any surprises with that, man.
It might really be after dark now. It might be in the dark.
Pac-12 in the dark. For the most part, man. I mean, I'm confident Oregon's going to be A-okay, because this is an arms race for money-making schools. Oregon's a money-making school. So I think it's going to be fun to watch how it plays out, but I think Oregon's going to be perfectly fine. It was very surprising how it all unfolded. I know there is a guy on Twitter who he had called the Texas-Oklahoma move months before that happened. He called the UCLA-USC move months before that happened. He's been calling the Notre Dame hype with this way since the beginning. Like, there's this, I can't remember his @ I'll have to pull that up, but he has been on the money about absolutely everything. His @ is Flug Empire, and he has been on it with everything.
Ryan, your thoughts?
Well, I think you nailed it a little bit when you start talking about the history, right? Everything's in flux. College realignment, the conference realignment, I think is ever changing. And yes, there are traditions like myself who would love to see us stick it out West Coast, and there's other people who want to chase the bag, and that's where we're at right now. Everybody's chasing the money. I get it. The two biggest TV contracts are after those two big conferences, and it's kind of like everybody else is just a hinterland at this point. So if you can try to get into that Big 10, if you can try to get into that SEC, you try to do it, because it looks like right now the Pac-12, the ACC, and the Big 12 are both on the way out. They're all three on the way out.
Before I say anything else, I got to clear two things up here. So first and foremost, before we get to more Oregon Ducks discussion here, I got to find it. We're going to post it here in just a second. Ryan, you are a lefty, correct? Ryan, can you hear us?
Golfer, yes.
Yes, you're a lefty golfer. So I was looking for another post, and now I'm seeing this. So we've got Ryan chipping, laying one up beautifully right by the hole there. Ryan, we're showing your skills from the sand. It's tremendous.
think we're
Unfortunately, we
losing
don't have a good connection with Ryan. Hopefully he can hear us. And Ryan, if you're able to, then we'll get back to the Oregon football discussion. This is basically Ryan in a nutshell. This is beautiful because
didn't see that.
basically, let me blow this up. I'll try to get this. I can't see both shots at the same time, but basically this is Ryan just showing us that he loves Oregon football. He loves the Pac-12, but life's going to give you whatever it's going to give you, and you got to roll with it and make the best of it. And it's Ryan celebrating decades and decades of Pac-12 football.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically at the end of the run right here. See if I can get you a little bit better internet connection over here. Yeah, it's just basically the end of an era, right? So we're at the end of an era, and we're hoping for the best for the future. I kind of like what Mike just said there about how, money-making schools should be fine. Oregon should be fine, but weird times out here. So, yes, so cheers, Pelican Brewing, the Cape Kiwanda. Cheers to that, and it's been a fun ride. I mean, you mentioned 1978. That's when I was born, and Rich Brooks came in that same time, and we've been in this conference for this whole time, and been playing against the LA schools and everything else for all these years, and now it's all gone, and it could be completely gone if we don't kind of build this thing back together. And I think that'd be a great topic to talk about today. Is what does the future hold? Because golly, the last 24 hours have been a whirlwind.
Yeah, so this is what we're going to do, I think, is I'm going to set you guys up with a starting point here, and then you guys really take off on this discussion because, shoot, people heard me talk about this for like 4 hours yesterday. I've got all sorts of opinions and models, and people are going to see more stuff from me. I've already told Notre Dame what they need to do, and I'm going to be splitting the Big Ten into divisions. I'll be doing all that stuff, so be looking out, folks, for my posts, but I want to hear from these two. So let's start from this vantage point. What do you think is going to happen with Oregon? Based on what we've gathered today and late yesterday, it appears as though Oregon and Washington have applied for the Big Ten, but it appears as though the Big Ten is waiting on Notre Dame. That's what we're hearing. What do you think is going to happen with Oregon, and what would you like to have happen with Oregon?
Mike, you want that?
Yeah, so what I think happens is it comes down to financials, obviously. They're either going to go to 18 teams or 20 teams. The financial benefit comes at 18 teams unless you can find a significant fourth team. Obviously, you have three moneymakers already being mentioned. Washington, 19th biggest revenue generator in college football. Oregon, 14th, and Notre Dame was somewhere in the top 5. Oregon and Notre Dame have been rumored by, I think it was a Fox analyst, to be getting a lot of buzz to get in. But without a fourth pairing, I don't know if Washington or whoever they choose, it'll be Notre Dame and one of Washington and Oregon. So whichever one they don't choose is going to need the Big Ten to find another moneymaker to even have a chance to get in, because 18 fiscally makes the most sense for the Big Ten. I don't think they add a team like Stanford, who is a negative in the money pool. It just doesn't make a lot of financial sense, and if it don't make dollars, it don't make sense. So I don't really see a path for both Oregon and Washington to get in right now.
Good point here. Let me see if I can get the mic. There we go. Sorry, and if I got some wind out here, I had to move over here. I think my internet's a little dicey out here on the coast, but
it's much better.
Thanks for sticking with me, people. I'm really torn. I think, I was talking yesterday on my channel, and I could have talked for an hour, just literally just thinking about all the different scenarios, the different options. It's really difficult. I was out golfing today. I golfed today with the former Duck fullback from the 70s, Jim Anderson, and he played with Dan Fouts. Ahmad Rashad's like his best friend. I mean, this is a guy who we were talking it all up, and he was like, I think it's really fun to go back to the Pac-8. I mean, he's ready to just let's tear the whole thing down and let's just have it be Oregon and Washington and just duke this thing out and see where we're at the end of the year. My son, who represents kind of the new age, I would say, of things, and who's seen a lot of wins at Autzen, he's kind of in the same boat where he's like, he doesn't think that Ducks would fare that well in the Big Ten. He would like to see us stay at home. And here I am in the middle of these two generations. And I'm thinking, shit, the only way we can do it to survive is to get to the Big Ten.
Yeah.
Or even take a bid somewhere else in the Big 12 or somewhere. Because in my mind, the Pac-12 is done as of yesterday.
I love Oregon.
So I kind of see it from all different sides, and I see the different perspectives. But looking at it from a kind of a viewpoint of a 30,000-foot viewpoint, everything is changing in college football, and everything will continue to change in college football. Oregon has done a fairly good job branding themselves as a national brand in a very rural part of the world. Again, I'm right here on the edge of the continent. I'm in the complete Pacific Northwest, tucked away from the rest of the world. And it feels like that, especially sometimes when you get into these conversations around national sports versus regional sports, And, Mike put up a great point talking about Oregon and Washington together. I originally thought that might be the only way to do it. But now looking into it deeper, I mean, I think there's a lot of things on the table. I do think that Oregon has to really understand exactly where they are in the world. Are they a top pick? No. Do I love the Ducks? Do we love the Ducks as a Duck community? Yes. But Notre Dame is a huge pull. We're not competing with Notre Dame on this level. And I look at it as if Big Ten's looking at Notre Dame or Oregon, it's pretty obvious that they're going to pick. And, it's just, we're a small school out here. We're 20,000 kids and a small media market for the most part in the 20s, depending on how you look at it. Portland, if you want to consider that, 25 media market or whatever. There's just not a lot of room. Now, at the same time, Oregon does come with something. They have that connection with Nike. They have some cachet. They have built a brand. But I just don't know if it's sustainable for them to go and play in the Big Ten, nor do I think they would be that competitive. I think that you might find yourself in the situation, if you were to play this year's Duck football team in the Big Ten schedule, you're probably losing 3 or 4 games. And you do that same exact team in the Pac-12 schedule, and you might be losing 1 or 2 games. So I do think the significant improvement of play goes into the Pac-12, going into the Big 12, or going to the Big 10, I should say. But I think the Big 12 is in another situation as well. I think they added those 4 teams, and I don't think that makes them that much better. So the Pac-12 needs to look at the situation and say, does the Pac-12 basically adding the better Mountain West schools make them a better conference? I don't think so.
Yeah, it's all a matter of what level do you want to compete at? Do you want to continue just making these New Year's Six Bowls, which it has seemed over the Twitter and the coaching search and everything that the older section of the fan base is fine with, because, hey, we never did this when I was a kid. But to the people who have seen some of the success, it's like, yeah, we've had a lot of good compared to what Oregon's been before, but eventually you want to get to that next step. And if you stay in the Pac-12 or if you go to the Big 12, you're not going to have the resources to compete with the rest of the country. It's just not going to work. The money, Vanderbilt was getting $50 million a year more than what USC was getting. That's absurd. And it all happened because we made too long. The TV deal wasn't even horrible when it was negotiated, but it was too long. We didn't have any room to renegotiate once more money came into college football, and it just killed the Pac-12.
Yeah, and I would say not only was it too long, it was also short-sighted, right?
Mm-hmm.
In the mindset that they thought they were going to get they said they were going to get the Asian market. I mean, are you kidding me? They told us they were going to have our games played in Tokyo. I mean,
yeah,
there was some real BS thrown our way with the Larry Scott era. So,
and then once the Pac-12 network started looking like something real, they said, "Hey, let's pull all of its funding. Let's fire their best personalities, give them some Nokia flip phones for cameras, and just leave it at that."
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, it's a tough situation. I mean, I like the Pac-12. I think the Pac-12 has value. I think there's good teams out here in every single sport across the board. I think there's really good skills out here, but it's in a totally different mindset with the rest of the country. 1/3 of the population lives west of the Mississippi. So the idea is that most of the population's on the east, in the Midwest. They dominate every single year. And Mark, being a guy who, grew up with Ohio State football, you understand this better than anybody. Oregon just got here. Or Ohio State's been here. Michigan's been here. These teams set the stage of what college football is today. Oregon's a fairly new brand. And I just don't know if they have the cachet to actually, that the Big Ten would even want them. I'm at the point in my life where I don't feel like it's that big of an insult to think that Oregon is not at the top of the list for their conferences that they want. I mean, yes, they have a little bit of cachet here and there, but they're nowhere near the Los Angeles media market. It's not USC.
Yeah, right now, though, it's not about Oregon versus Notre Dame, because if the Big Ten adds Notre Dame, they're not going to stay at an odd number of teams. It's about Oregon versus Washington, or Oregon versus, I don't know what other teams they could be looking at. The ACC, it's almost impossible to get out of, but maybe they find a way to whirl like a Miami in there, or they're looking at Oregon and Stanford. We just have to be above those teams, which, God, I hope we're viewed above those teams, because if not, it's a struggle.
If we're talking football play on the field and we're talking about money and brand, after Notre Dame, I can't think of anybody that's out there available that's anywhere close to Oregon.
Well, Oregon's only 4 spots higher, I believe, in terms of revenue than Washington. Their TV market size is, I believe, around a dozen spots lower.
Yeah.
So that's the only argument. But Oregon's revenue is higher. Oregon's ratings are drastically higher. So there's arguments on both sides, but I don't know which way that a TV executive looks at it, because obviously Fox is making these decisions. And for the comment about NBC is Fox.
Yeah, I think the media has really changed the game here. I mean, ESPN basically trying to take over the SEC really changed things. If you just go back 5 years ago when CBS kind of controlled the SEC and, ESPN kind of had their hands in all different conferences. But when the Pac-12 made their media deal, they thought they could be like their own SEC conference or their own Longhorn network. And nothing ever came of it. And, I do really think that this whole thing started with Larry Scott on the level of there were people in the Los Angeles market that couldn't watch the LA games. I mean, that's absurd. And, I know this from a Portlander because we had this situation with the Portland Trailblazers where they changed the media rights and people freaked out because they couldn't see the Blazer games and they weren't available in the market. Well, the Pac-12 did the exact same thing. In an era where you can stream games, where you can see things online at any time, there were blackouts where people couldn't watch their own team play.
I can find the Hawaii games. I live in Florida for those watching. I can find the Hawaii games, and I can almost never get Oregon.
Well, Hawaii might be a Pac-12 member next year, so maybe or 2 years.
Yeah, it's insane. Like, I don't understand. And, at times I'll be able to, get, now the Pac-12 network has the Roku app. So they were improving under Kliavkov for a minute there, but it's too little too late. There was nothing Kliavkov could have done, but yeah, and
you're right. There was nothing they could have done. They tried to change the divisional schedule. They tried to do some other sort of stuff, but there were whispers about this when they went to the 16
a year ago,
right? Oh no, way back when they tried to get Texas and Oklahoma. There were whispers right then that because they didn't get Texas and Oklahoma, SC was out.
What was our reasoning for not wanting to allow Texas to have the Longhorn network?
It's absurd. Again, this is the idea that they were so egotistical about their own brand or their own network that they give up on this. It's absurd, Mike.
You could have been like, hey, keep the Longhorn network. Just help us out getting this network set up.
Buddy, just as a real estate guy alone, you would understand. Take the land. Like, it's a valuable asset. Take the land. Like, to give that up is ridiculous. And I just think that big
pay
picture,
a premium for a San Fran office.
The big picture, we have to do a lot on the West Coast to make West Coast football relevant. West Coast football is, for the most part, irrelevant. You talked about Pac-12 after dark. Yeah, that was kind of fun. The East Coast didn't watch that unless you're MarkRogersTV and you're the voice of college football. There's not a lot of eyes on an Arizona State, Oregon State game at 11:30 at night on the West Coast. It's 2:30 in the morning on the East Coast.
I
What
love
the heck
that.
is going on here?
See, I love it, but I'm a Pac-12 fan. I live on the East Coast, and I am not watching that shit half the time.
But my point is, outside of people who are in the profession or people who eat this stuff up because they love it, the average person's not watching it. The average person is watching Cleveland versus Houston on a Sunday afternoon at 4:00 in the afternoon. The idea that college football wants to be so much like the NFL, they're chasing those numbers, they're chasing those optics, and they're moving toward a new system that only rewards TV money. They don't care about gate. They don't care about people going to the games. They don't care about regionality. They don't care about connections between rivalries. It's only about the TV dollars.
Which long term, I mean, we've seen attendance, even at the best schools, attendance has slowly been declining for years. And that's not just with college, that's with most professional leagues. So, I mean, long term, it'll probably be the smart thing to do. But in the short term, it does suck for people who are going to these games and, you know, who want to be able to go to a road game, because it makes it a lot harder when it's all the way across the country. But long term, it might be a solid play.
And you know what? If it happens, it happens. I'm at the mindset literally where I would be kind of surprised at this point, whatever time it is right now, 4:00 on the West Coast. I would be surprised if Oregon even got an invite to the Big Ten. That when this first thing happened, I thought the Big Ten is going to be very comfortable just adding the LA schools. Everybody gets their $100 million. They've chalked this thing up already. Otherwise, we would have maybe got an invite. We're asking to go to the party. That's not a good scene.
Well,
we're trying to get invited. We haven't got the invite. When we
USC asked to go too.
We asked, but that doesn't mean you're going to get a yes. And you know what? I played with a guy today. Like I said, playing with some guys who are former Duck players and then a former Portland State player. But these guys said, you know what? The future might be that teams might leave the Big Ten because they can't compete. And you might have a shuffling effect. And so you might have these teams that were old school Big Ten members that might get kind of pushed out the door because they're not helping the bottom line. And I hadn't even thought of that. I had only thought of the Big Ten going to like a 20-member program. This guy today kind of blew my mind thinking, hey, what if Indiana can't hang anymore? What if Minnesota can't hang and they're going to get poached by some other conference?
It's
Everything
really
is
hard.
Everything is in flux right now.
It's really hard to kick a team out of a league. And
I know.
If teams wanted to leave because they weren't having success, no, Vanderbilt and Rutgers would have left. But the money is just so enormous that it's.
I agree.
Who cares?
But I'm thinking, hey, if you asked me, this is my whole point. If you asked me 10 years ago, would this happen today? I probably would have said no. So what the hell's going to happen in the next 10 years? Aliens could land. I don't know what's going on here.
But the feasibility of, like, say, a team who isn't succeeding, like in Indiana, of them having enough money to go into another conference and still be able to use that football money to fund everything they've been trying to fund with football, they wouldn't have it anymore. It's it's a lot.
But and again, I don't necessarily think that's going to happen. This guy blew my mind saying that to me, but it was a new wrinkle that I hadn't thought of, where I thought, wow, we're talking about adding, we're talking about expanding. What if we start talking about contracting, and you have these Fox executives that say, hey, Purdue, you had a winning season 2 years ago, but you haven't had a winning season in 4 years. You're hurting the brand here, and try to push them out. I mean, I don't know what's going to happen in the next 10 years. This already, to me, is amazing. I'm literally kind of like stunned by this. I feel like I'm Joseph Stalin when the Nazis attacked. And Stalin didn't want to agree for like 3 or 4 days. He didn't want to believe it that Hitler attacked.
What a reference.
I love it.
I'm serious. Yeah. And I'm like, and here's Oregon being like, what? LA left the conference? We don't have any schools in Los Angeles anymore? What the heck is going on here?
How on earth this caught Oregon and Washington by surprise is beyond me. There's no way.
They had to know.
Well, I've seen multiple people saying their sources say Oregon and Washington were completely off guard. They did not expect this coming at all.
So I have a buddy of mine who's a USC grad who's connected in with their program, and he said that all these discussions started 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, and that's
I
insane.
said that's absurd. I said, how could UCLA get the grant from the UC regents in 2 weeks?
Well, it wasn't.
And his line was, they're not asking for the admission.
Yeah, they're not getting grants.
They're already gone. They're
Because
coming with us.
it used to
That happened
be
2 weeks ago.
a long time ago, you needed the funding from UC to keep up with your athletic department. Well, now your athletic department makes more than UC's given you. So what does it even matter at this point? That's the same thing with Oregon State. People are asking, oh, is the state of Oregon going to allow Oregon to dip off? Oregon does not care about the money that the state gives their athletic department anymore. They do not need that money anymore. They're net revenuing $96 million a year. They could care
Oregon's basically
less.
a private school. I mean, it's a public school in theory. I think it gets like 5 or 10% public.
It's a
funding.
public school as much as Florida State's a public school.
Yeah, it's like a private school. And more importantly is you're talking about football directing everything. So the football number is going to push everything. So now we're talking about playing women's basketball, and they're going to have to go as well. This is where I like to have another whole wrinkle in conversation about the idea that college football has become so popular and become so valuable, it should be its own entity. It should separate from the NCAA. It should have its own body. It should have its own rules. It should have its own situation because
And
it's
license
now,
the school's logos.
in my mind, directly impacting the lives of student athletes in all other sports, much more than it ever did before. Obviously, football revenue has always driven all these athletic budgets, but now it's impacting the decision-making of whether to go to conferences. I mean, we basically have the transfer portal. USC and UCLA hit the transfer portal. They moved to a different conference.
And, you know, don't get it twisted. Oregon and Washington are in the transfer portal looking for a destination right now.
Yeah, they might. Right. And they might have to be one of those guys that goes back. Well, I hit the transfer portal. It didn't look so good. I'm coming back.
One of the two isn't coming back. If Notre Dame decides they're coming, one of the two is going with, because you're not going to have an odd number of teams.
I understand, and I hope it's Oregon, but academically, Washington has us. They did that with the academic prowess. Remember this? They got us with the academics. They got us on the books, and they got a bigger TV market. So again, I kind of hope it's a situation where you try to compare it. If Notre Dame does go, I would love to see Stanford kind of maybe try to make a play, because I originally thought Stanford would just go independent. Again, now we're talking about the Ducks here, but if you go Pac-12, I originally thought Stanford could literally today just go independent. Why do they need? The word on the street was Stanford has more in their endowment than every other school in the Pac-12 combined.
Yeah.
Stanford is not connected. They don't need the money.
But the
So
thing
on
is,
the level, they can go independent, and then you're talking about maybe going Cal or, whatever the case. It's absolute chaos in the West Coast, Mark. This is literally, we're on the Titanic right now, and we're trying to figure out which freaking lifeboat to jump on.
all the Pac-12 teams got money. They're just not willing to spend it half the time.
I'm going to draw up a few different scenarios, and you guys tell me if any of them make sense, or this is the direction they're going to go, or if there's another feasible. And I'm probably going to miss about 18, but these are the ones that come to mind that seem feasible. So as soon as it was USC, UCLA, then I thought, based on what I know of the obvious academic status and the market size from a TV standpoint, and then these two being attached much like USC and UCLA at the hip, my initial thought was, and I had heard some things about Stanford, Cal. So that's one. Again, Oregon, Washington. So to Mike's point, if Notre Dame chooses the Big Ten, if the Big Ten's able to bring in Notre Dame and they want one other, then they're looking at Oregon, they're looking at Washington. I would be 75% sure that it's going to be Oregon, I believe. But let's say Oregon gets turned down by the Big Ten. So now they're in no man's land. They either hunker down and stay in the Pac-8. And what is the Pac-8 going to do by survival? Are they going to go after Boise State, San Diego State, those kind of schools, the top tier of the Mountain West, to try to solidify something, but probably be left out of the automatic entry status for a college football playoff and not have that, what is now a Power 5 status? Or scenario number 3 would be the Big 12 sitting at 14 after Oklahoma and Texas leave. Do they go to whoever they believe to be the two best candidates from the Pac-12, which I would think would be Oregon and Utah from a football standpoint, and try to solidify their conference and raise the level? Because when Oklahoma State and Baylor and possibly TCU are your best football product, Oregon and Washington could be the best football programs that would be in the Big 12. And their chance to compete at an elite level.
So the Berkeley Stanford thing, I think, is just as likely as it being North Dakota State and Eastern Washington.
Okay.
If this decision is made by Fox and it's money driven, and those two teams are money pits as of right now. Stanford's paying their coach more than I think any other coach in the conference is making and getting nothing out of it. In terms of just, a note on the Big 12. This is not really related to the question directly, but within 10 years, I strongly feel like UCF is going to be running that conference. So much money is getting dumped into that program, and they're getting added into a team who still has their media deal for the foreseeable future for a little while now. So they're still going to be getting Power 5 money at the very least until this contract's up. I mean, if we got denied from the Big 10, the Big 12 is going to be the only chance, because the other Pac-12 teams also aren't going to stay. Like, there's going to be panic. The whole thing with the Pac-12 was that they've always remained steadfast. USC and Oregon had both stayed, despite every time we heard rumors about stuff going on. There were rumors of USC, UCLA, Oregon, Washington, or USC and Oregon. And there was all these rumors. Nothing changed. Everything was good. Nobody left. The minute USC left, UCLA doesn't even matter at this point. The minute USC left, the Pac-12 was done. Oregon cannot be the number one for a conference. I love Oregon. Oregon does do really well with TV viewership, but they cannot be your primary brand in a conference and your conference be successful. It's just not going to work.
Yeah, I would agree with that, Mike. And again, like I said, I'm a diehard Oregon. I mean, again, a multiple generational Oregon fan. My grandparents, my parents, my son. I don't think Oregon's there. I think it's too remote, and I think the West Coast is very, very underpopulated comparatively. And if you're talking about TV numbers only, then we're not in the situation. If you're talking about competitive programs, I think Oregon's there. I think Oregon's the most competitive program in the whole Pac-12, including USC. I think across the board, women's basketball, men's basketball, track and field, baseball, across the board, Oregon is competitive. And obviously in football, Oregon has been the, standard bearer of the Pac-12 for the last basically decade. I mean, you've had some good Stanford teams, you've had some good Washington teams, you've had some good USC teams, but Oregon's kicked everybody's ass for the last decade, repeatedly. And they've gotten some chances nationally. They just haven't been able to cash in. They weren't able to beat Cam Newton and the Auburn team that no one else was able to beat in the conference of the SEC. And the guy went to be the rookie of the year the next year in the NFL. They couldn't beat Ohio State on the goddamn third-string quarterback. But there's Ezekiel Elliott. He went to be the rookie of the year the next year in the NFL. And, they've just run up against some really good teams. And they haven't been able to cash it in. Had they just won one of those damn things, maybe something's different out here. But Oregon is the team that has been in the Final Four and has been in the national championship for football twice. Yep. No other school has done that.
Yep.
And even come close. I mean, Washington was there 1 year, got beat by Bama, and UCLA went to the Final Four, during COVID or whatever. Other than that, there's been no team in the Pac-12 at all who's been able to hang with Oregon's athletic department.
Yeah.
And so I would say that at the moment, 2022, Oregon has proven that they've built themselves an athletic department that can hang in any conference. I think Oregon right now in the Big 12 would be maybe the number 2 team in the conference, number 1 team in the conference. I think in the Big 10, they'd probably be in the top 3 or 4. I think in the ACC, they'd be in the top 2. I think in the SEC, they'd be in the top 5. But this is a school that is really difficult to prove it nationally because they haven't cashed in. They don't have the national championship. They don't have this, that, and the other. And we're just so remote. We're out here on the very edge of the continent. The only school we're even close to, that's even comparatively, is Washington. And Washington is the farthest out. Goddamn Seattle lost an NBA team. The Sonics left. They went to Oklahoma City. I mean, that should say it all. Seattle's a way better city than Oklahoma City. No offense to my friends in Oklahoma, but holy smokes. Are you kidding me?
You did touch on something.
We're up against it. You have to basically run the table out here for the Pac-12 to get a champion, and you have to basically be perfect in any other sport to be able to hang and contend. And even in your best year, you're still going to get beat by Ohio State by their third-string quarterback.
Yeah, and you mentioned the ACC. That is my dark horse option for what could happen. The ACC can renegotiate their media rights deal if they add 2 teams. So say somehow Oregon and Washington get denied, and say the SEC might not be interested. Which,
what do you call that conference?
You call it the conference. Conference names don't matter anymore.
The conference.
Conference.
That's trademark. Can't do that.
No. You got to file a new trademark for the and make it the conference. But that opens the ACC to renegotiate their media rights. And if you have Oregon, Washington, Florida State, Clemson, Miami, North Carolina, Duke on basketball, you could get a pretty solid deal out of there. You just have to, get some handshake agreements that the Clemson, Miami, Florida State don't go nowhere once they open up the negotiations.
Well, and that's why I was excited about that alliance, Mike, was I thought, okay, the alliance might be the thing that actually keeps us legitimate and allows us to play ACC schools and Big Ten schools.
Brian.
The alliance is gone.
Yes.
Brian, you believed in a handshake deal? Come on.
Jesus
we all knew
Christ.
how flimsy the alliance was, and here it is proven. Yes, that's how strong the alliance was.
I see the comment you have pinned there. TCU, Baylor, Oklahoma State, which that OSU is not Oklahoma State. But anyway, those teams, yes, they're on, certain years just as good as Oregon. But on a consistent basis, Oregon has been a top 10 team at least every other year. I mean, Oregon went through their worst patch in history. 2 years later, we're back in a Rose Bowl, beating Wisconsin, sending a player off to the NFL in the first round as a quarterback, sending another guy off the next year as a tackle. TCU, Baylor, and Oklahoma State are really solid programs. Oklahoma State's got more money than people realize, but they're not on Oregon's level yet. They could get there with the Big 12, being run by them right now, but they're not on the same level right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think this year Oregon would, if you just played everything out as an open schedule and played everybody, I think Oregon right now would be competitive with Oklahoma for the championship of the Big 12. I think that
I'm more scared of Texas than Oklahoma.
Right. And you know what? Baylor's been great. Much respect to Baylor. I'm not a fan out here to talk junk. I give respect to everybody. I love Oklahoma State. God damn, one of my favorite bowl games of all time was that Oklahoma State-Oregon game, that Holiday Bowl 08. Des Bryant was awesome. But my point is that if Oregon played in any other conference right now this year, they're doing well. They're going to be in the top of the conference, no matter what conference you put them in. Even in
top
the Big
half,
10,
at the very least.
Even in the Big 10. I think this year Oregon is better right now, this year going into this season, than USC.
Okay.
Now I think USC has maybe a higher potential. They would win a 7-on-7.
I thought you were about to say Ohio State. I was worried.
USC right now going into this year is a little bit unknown. I think Oregon has a better opportunity this year, 2022, to be better than USC. That means Oregon would be in the conversation of a, Michigan, Wisconsin trying to beat Ohio State. Last year they did beat Ohio State, and this year's team might be better than last year's team. So again, I look at it through the lens of, you have to look at this through long term. It can't just be about the now. I'm talking with my son about this. My son's going to be a junior in high school. What does he know? He only knows the last 10 years, right? So he's talking to me about all these schools that should be here or there. And I said, dude, all those schools have better tradition than Oregon. Historically, last 100 years, all those schools. But Oregon's been better over the last decade.
You want to know something?
Over the last decade. So if you're going to just play it on right now, then yes, Oregon's the better play. Historically, Washington is a much better school.
history stopped mattering once social media came out. I mean, Oregon got good at the perfect time. Oregon
A
got
little
good
bit.
at the social media era. So now I can go pull you. Obviously, you can go find highlights from these older teams on YouTube here and there. I could go pull up. I could just type in a date who Oregon played, and I get the full game right there, then and there, full stat line, who was commentating, who was coaching, who was playing.
Right, but Mike,
It's
let
different.
me jump in here really quickly. The old timers told me that Oscar Robertson was better than Michael Jordan. They just didn't have the video. So when I was a generation of Michael Jordan and I saw that thing, he said, when you saw him go cross hand against AC Green in the championship and go with the left hand, you saw it multiple times, every single time. So how many times have you seen that on video? Same thing with Oregon era. The Oregon era, man, I was just talking with this guy. He was from the 70s. In the 1970s, the Oregon program had some of the best players of all time. Dan Fouts might be the best quarterback of all time. Ahmad Rashad might be the best overall athlete in Oregon football of all time. Okay, you're talking about some serious players. Ronnie Lee was the basketball program, the best player of all time, better than anybody else. Who's better, Dylan Brooks? No. So my point is, like, in the 1970s, you had some of the greatest players in Oregon history. They weren't even that good then. They weren't even putting out quality teams then. They were losing to the Beavs every year. My point is that, like, you've had some of the greatest players come through Oregon's history at different times. That doesn't necessarily mean it was going to be a successful team. So now you've got a situation where you've got recruiting out of the gate. Unreal. This year's team historically would be the best recruited team in Oregon history. This is the crystal ball 3 years, 4 year stacked up lineup. Oregon's never even had that. So technically, on paper, this 2022 team is the greatest Oregon football team in history. On paper, with stars.
I don't know, but at the same time, yeah, we've had these guys who can play in the past. You've had the Dan Foutses, you've had the Ahmad Rashads. I think you exaggerated a couple of those things there a little bit.
Dude, here, I didn't exaggerate anything. If Justin Herbert is able to play the next 10 years at the same level that he's played the first 2 years, he will then eclipse Dan Fouts as the greatest Charger of all time.
Yeah,
Dan
I'm not talking about
Fouts is
pro,
a
though. In
NFL
college?
Hall of Famer who was at an era where they were handing the ball off. Ahmad Rashad was
one of the best agree. They were
wide
good.
receivers and running backs. You're talking about, this is a totally different era. Dude,
yeah, Dan Fouts was throwing for 4,000 yards when nobody was throwing for 4,000 yards.
was a guy who was let into the championship
but at the same time,
locker room with the team.
Ryan,
He's
if I went
on another level,
if I went to those Oregon teams in what was that, the 60s,
70s, that's
70s, and I threw Marcus Mariota on those teams, they'd probably be winning a lot more games.
Dude, Marcus would have been a wide receiver in that era.
Yeah, I don't know. We've had running quarterbacks
no
before.
offense to Marcus. Marcus is the GOAT. But Dan Fouts is an NFL Hall of Famer.
Yeah, there's a difference between college career and pro career.
Hasn't even gone to a Pro Bowl.
Yeah, but we're talking about college careers, man.
I understand. You put Dan Fouts in today's era, he's unbelievable.
He's Brett Favre.
Way better. Way better. Dan Fouts, you understand?
Way better.
I don't know about way better.
I don't know about way better either.
Top 15.
I watched all those guys play, and I'd put Dan Fouts and Brett Favre pretty much on the same tier.
Dan Fouts is not a Brett Favre type of player.
No,
Brett
he wasn't.
Favre is
He didn't run around like a fool.
No, I'm talking about the picks part.
Ty Cobb. Brett Favre is like, you can't compare him. He's either the greatest quarterback of all time, or he's like, you know what I'm saying? Like, Brett Favre is a very unique guy. He's like Ty Cobb. But
Jay Cutler like that too.
Dan Fouts is what you look at in the definition of a quarterback in Webster's dictionary.
You know, I think I Googled that and Tom Brady came up.
I'm just telling you, from our perspective as Oregon Duck fans, historical Oregon Duck fans, you've got some seriously good players at Oregon. No joke. You've got some great players. And Marcus did some seriously crazy things with the Chip Kelly offense, driving a Ferrari. Very different era in the 1970s. This is a guy that went to the NFL and is an NFL Hall of Famer. There's not too many guys that have an Oregon Letterman jacket and a gold jacket at the same time. You must respect them.
9 of them.
Okay.
You must respect them.
Absolutely. We're going to reel it back in here with a couple super chats here. The Real Hayden says, I'm seriously looking forward to crossover shows with Corey Bratta. So Corey Bratta is our Iowa guy. If Oregon comes to the Big Ten, entertaining as
They have
hell.
internet out there?
Great show, fellas. Pardon me?
They have internet in Iowa?
I believe so.
Corn powered.
Think they got it in 2017. Lemansky, we seem to be headed towards 2 super conferences. 3 is healthier and 4 improbable. Best book on change is Who Moved My Cheese?
He went off
I
topic
agree with
too.
that.
He's
What's
like us.
What's the best number of the conferences, right? I mean, I would assume you say 3, but you got 4 spots. So, right, you're now going from 5 to 3.
Yeah, but
I
the
would
Big
think
12,
4.
the Big 12 is going to be minusculely relevant unless they can get one of the Washington or Oregon. ACC still got Clemson, Miami, Florida State. They need to try and keep those 3. That's their goal. If they can keep those 3, there'll be 3 considered power conferences, and the Big 12 would fall under what the AAC has been for the past few years. It's like, which one are you? You're right teetering there.
But see the difference, if this playoff proposal that we saw last summer, if that comes through or anything close to that, then that was telling us that the committee is going to have to make a decision between now we just call the Power 5 the Power 5 and the Group of 5 the Group of 5, but it has no real weight to it. In the new playoff proposal, you have to be a Power 5 or whatever the number of conferences is going to be to receive a bye in the first round of this playoff. So they're going to have to make a determination on the Big 12 to say this is still a Power 3 league, 4 league, whatever it is, or it's not.
And the Pac-12 without USC, UCLA, Oregon, and Washington is not even close.
Oh yeah, they're toast. They're absolutely toast.
My guess would be they would make it the Power, I guess, 3.
It would have to be a Mountain West hybrid. I mean, it would be brutal. I just saw something on there, the little chat.
Your chat is wild.
Tony Graziani. I only see one at a time. I don't see everything. I'm on my phone out here. I'm on the.
Oh yeah, I see all of them, and there's some wild stuff I've been
Tony
here.
Graziani. Graziani was the man, dude. Probably the greatest arena football quarterback of all time. But no, Graziani's the man. There's a lot of great history at Oregon.
Kurt Warner. It's
just at Oregon. It doesn't necessarily compare to the rest of the country. And that's the thing is like, if you want to talk about Georgia, people talk about Herschel Walker. Everybody knows who Herschel Walker is, right? And everybody should know who Marcus Mariota is at this point. But, the Oregon history is just unique to Oregon. And now we're starting to kind of branch out a little bit. We're trying to have maybe history doesn't matter as much. But at the end of the day, you got to line them up and play.
Since Ryan can only see what's posted to the screen, I'm going to post everything that he either loves or is going to piss him off. One or the other.
Oh, hold on. Did you see this one, Mark? Dan Fouts was better than Bo Jackson?
Well,
no, Bo Jackson's the greatest athlete of all time. Him and Jim Thorpe.
Well, how do we even make that comparison?
What kind of, that's a running back and a quarterback.
No, but.
Yeah, I don't make those comparisons.
Dan Fouts, great guy, great athlete. Again, different era, but him and Air Coryell literally revolutionized the passing game in the NFL. He should be respected much, much more than he is for today's modern game. He looks the part of the modern quarterback in the early 80s, late 70s.
Guys, let me get to these super chats. We appreciate them coming in, everyone. We got about 400 people on the line. Hayden says, y'all skipped my second super chat. I'll read it. I'll get it to it. My apologies, Hayden. Jake Allison, Oregon has to be feeling what we Oklahoma State people felt last year. I hope the best for y'all. Not fun. Don't underrate the Pokes.
No. Love the Pokes.
That is really strange place for these individual athletic directors and administrations to be in, because when Texas and Oklahoma took off, the Big 12 got together and we heard about all these powwows they had together, these locked, close the doors, shut the doors, lock the doors, and what are we going to do kind of meetings. But at the same time, that all those administrators are also, while they're trying to present this unified view for everyone, they're also thinking, where are we going to go? And if we get a good offer,
I totally agree. And Oklahoma State was one of those teams that, how do they not feel completely left at the altar, right? I mean, here they are. They're competitive enough in their conference, and here their dancing partner leaves, and what are they left to do? They're left to try to hold it down, rebuild their conference, and try to add some teams that, don't add that much. I mean, I think BYU is a pretty quality program across their board. I do think you mentioned UCF down there, Mike, and
A lot of money there.
Yeah, and Houston, it's a good footprint there. But my point being is that you lost Oklahoma and Texas. I mean, you lose 2 Ferraris out of the goddamn garage. You bring them back with some Hondas. Yeah, Hondas will get you from point A to point B, but they're not a Ferrari. And here you go in the same situation where Pac-12's in the same boat.
No.
It doesn't even matter how good UCLA is on the field. It's the Los Angeles market. That's the thing. It's those 2 schools from LA. That's what's huge is about losing that here. So now if you're in the Pac-12, what do you do? Or do you do the same thing Oklahoma did? Do you try to hold it down, try to add new schools? Who's going to make your conference better? There's really nobody out there who's going to make your conference better. So I totally agree. It's either you got to bolt or you got to try to do something miraculous and pull something out of a hat.
You're bolting unless you can add like the Seahawks. You're bolting.
Seahawks doesn't play women's soccer though, bro.
They don't play quarterback either.
Not next year.
Or football quarterback. What?
Not next year.
I see this super chat you got pinned here, man.
You read this, Mike, because
what
I
is
don't
he
even
saying?
get it. I don't understand. I don't get it.
Oregon has been overhyped sometimes. Otherwise, they would. I'm assuming he's saying we have Nike. Otherwise, we would never be brought up and compared to Oklahoma because Ryan made that comparison earlier. I'm assuming is what this is. Oklahoma, yes, we understand Oklahoma is a higher tier program than Oregon, but Oregon is not that far behind. Yes, we don't have the history, but in terms of where you are right now and how much you matter right now, they're not that far behind. And to think they are is just hopeless. It's being a fan. That's what we're here for.
And again, as an objective fan, I think Oklahoma would beat Oregon going into this next year because I think Oklahoma's going to have a great year this next year. They're going to have a bounce back. But the big picture is that Oklahoma is basically at the level that they're running the Big 12. Oregon has been at that level of running the Pac-12. So why would we not think that we're in the same category as them as being the leaders of their conference?
You think Oklahoma's going to be good?
Was it again?
You think Oklahoma's going to be good with
Mr.
I think
One Knee? I don't know. I kind of think that there's a little bit of magic with a brand new coach coming in. There's still a lot of really good talent in that room. We'll see how that goes. I don't know how Venables will be. I don't know how there's question marks. With
Quarterback is my question mark.
I know.
Probably 9-3, 10-2 good.
But Oklahoma is still a factory, a football factory, and I would assume the best for them.
Do you think 8-4, Mike?
Yeah,
I would take the over on that. I wouldn't be surprised.
I would take the over.
If Milton had never gotten hurt, I would be more on the 10-2 line. But Milton's not the Milton we remember him being.
Dylan Gabriel.
Or Gabriel. Sorry, Gabriel never got hurt either. Where's Milton at?
He's gone.
Did he retire? Ignore me. Ignore me.
I think the thing with Oklahoma is a bigger situation. Oklahoma has very high expectations to the point where if they're not in the national championship, it's a bust. And if they're not winning the national championship, it's a little.
Well, they've been below them expectations for quite some time now.
I'd love to be there. Very different situation.
Oh, we got some people mad up in this chat that we comparing to Oregon to some of their teams. Oregon has a playoff win.
If we're talking about right this second, and then also giving consideration to the recent past, the last 10 or 12 years, there are only 6 to 7 programs in the country that you could clearly say are better than Oregon, are on another level based on history and right now. But Oregon's right there with, and again, we're talking currently, Oregon's right there with Penn State. They're right there with, they've been better than Miami and Florida State for quite some time.
I love playing Florida.
You know, they're right there with, let's say, Florida's kind of an odd comparison, but Florida's all over the place and has been since Urban Meyer.
Florida, man. I don't know what's going on over there.
Yeah.
That's fun.
Interesting
there's
stuff.
It's not a bunch of teams. Looks like we lost Ryan.
Yeah, we lost Ryan. I was just glad that his Wi-Fi held out that long.
I think his phone died. Is my guess. An hour of a video chat on a modern iPhone is dead.
Yeah, that's pretty good work out of that.
That's pretty good work. Yeah, you know, I know Oregon doesn't have a lot of respect nationally, obviously, because they were in the Pac-12 and it's like, oh, you've played cupcakes. I think CFB Home, which is my buddy Shaler, ran a comparison to one of the schools that we mentioned, Florida. And, you know, Oregon had beaten more top 25 teams, played less FCS teams, been ranked more weeks, been ranked in the top 10 more weeks. But it's all about marketing. That's what college football has been about for years now. It's all about how you can market your conference and your team.
Mike, I'm going to show you some numbers that were compiled by our buddy here, Tony Altimore. He's a consultant and strategist who looked at fan bases. It may take me a minute here to find it. And he basically compiled how large fan bases are for every team in the country.
That New York Times project a few years ago was cool to see, where you could click anywhere on the map and see who the top 3 teams were.
If I can find it.
That one's dated, but there were a couple spots in New York City you could click, and Oregon was there. Hey, Ryan, welcome back.
Look at that.
Internet out here, you know how it goes, man.
I figured your phone died. I said an hour worth of video chatting is done for.
No, I just all of a sudden it just froze on me, man. Internet.
SEC is over the Pac-12. No, duh. Nobody is arguing against you there, sir.
So can you guys see the screen here? I'm going to show you these numbers, and you guys tell me if you think they're accurate. So again, Ryan wasn't with us for a second there. Ryan, these are numbers put together by Tony Altimore. He's a strategist, consultant guy that we've had on here on the channel, and he's put together some numbers. I'll try to blow them up so you guys can see. So that is... these are amount of fans for each conference. So we got the SEC at 54 million, the Big Ten at close to 45,
Notre
ACC
Dame.
31, 32, with Notre Dame included. Pac-12, or yeah, well, this was before USC and UCLA left. So we're going to look at the individual teams here close. So I'm going to guess that's going to get cut by probably a third.
Yeah,
Big 12 at 11 and on down the line.
You know, yeah, I wouldn't be shocked if we were still above the Big 12.
Oh, I think so. Still slightly. Okay, let's get to, that's average per team. Let's get to the Pac-12. This is what he has. So he's got, I'm lining this up without being able to see it on screen yet, so I might be way off. So he has, I'll blow it up a little more.
Good job, Oregon State. Woo, woo.
He's got Oregon ahead of everyone, followed by USC. There it is. So there you see the Big Ten obviously taking the top 4, according to Tony's research, the top 4 programs in the conference.
Arizona State needs to be divided in half because only half of them are sober.
Yeah, that it's interesting. I mean, I do think Oregon has itself a little footprint, and it has some popularity, and the proof's in the numbers.
The footprint has come because all the Little League, you know how many Little League Duck teams there are of built fans who never actually had any
one
relation?
of them. Those are my favorite Little League football teams.
Yeah, it's insane. It's fun. Ooh, Hayden loves you, Mark, or he just hates Oregon. One of the two.
Hayden loves me. We're going to take that. No, Hayden has never contributed like this, so he hates the Ducks, apparently. Before we get to you, Hayden, that my shot in the dark, and you guys both shot it down, was Stanford and Cal. I get it.
Yeah, that one was.
Wait a minute. Hang on. Endowments, academic endowments. Think about that kind of money that comes into the Big Ten. And the Big Ten is very academic minded. Keep that in mind. And one of the synergy points of the Big 12, the Big Ten and the Pac-12 for all these years has obviously been academic like-mindedness for the most part. And to grab that San Francisco, San Jose TV market, which I understand doesn't care about Cal and Stanford football, but when those matchups are suddenly Stanford, Ohio State, Stanford, Michigan, Stanford, Penn State, etc., and that Stanford football team and the program obviously cared at one point to get a Jim Harbaugh and to raise the level of play for what, 6, 7, 8, close to a decade. It's just a thought.
Yeah, but the endowments, the conference doesn't get to touch the endowment.
Well, exactly, but they're connected. There's some type of sharing of academic resources and connectedness there.
Yeah, if the endowments mattered to the conferences, everyone would have been rushing to add, obviously Stanford. They would have been excited to go get a Northwestern. They would be chomping at the bit for a Washington instead of going to get Oregon.
Okay. I was just filling in I just wanted to complete my proposal there.
That proposal is still wild, Mark.
Okay.
Well, I side with you a little bit more, Mark, on that. I do think that Cal and Stanford have a lot to bring to the table, especially Stanford. I do think that, you have to think big picture. You have a school out in the, Big Ten like Northwestern. Northwestern would love to have a team like Stanford in their conference. You look at the academic prowess that Washington threw in our face last year, and they named a bunch of those schools that weren't really good at football, but were really good at academics. And I know that both academically and athletic programs have to work together to build these schools. But, the Pac-12's statement today, all it said was, we hope for the best for academics and athletics amongst our member programs. Didn't really say much about the competition factor of the football programs versus the SEC programs. That's all about the football success. So at least they understand what the hell they're doing down there. Whereas still on the West Coast, it's about, academic integrity.
Well, so Stanford has one saving grace. Notre Dame likes Stanford. Notre Dame really likes Stanford. They like playing Stanford.
They're old school friends.
They're all homies. That's the old homie from the block. And they are that is the only way I could see a Stanford getting in there. But I don't think Notre Dame's gonna, place all of their eggs on we need Stanford to come with us.
No.
Sure.
No.
And you would also have a USC, UCLA, Stanford, and Cal contingent there to play all of those games between each other. That would
exactly. It would be nice though to think about that. If you were able to add Notre Dame and you were able to add Stanford and you had Oregon and Washington, you have a nice little West division built in there with Nebraska, Iowa, whatever else, if you want to do divisions. But you're not going to do divisions. You're going to have a 20-team conference with no divisions. Again, we're just in chaos land. Again, from our perspective of understanding it from some sort of balance, we're out of balance completely. They're going to have an even number of teams, but it's not even come close to some sort of balance geographically. I mean,
it'll probably be 5.
Literally right now, coast to coast.
5-team pods, maybe.
You guys want to hear my pods?
Yeah, there you go. Hey, let's hear them.
So this is with 16. This is with Oregon, Washington. You get a nice little pot on the West Coast. Obviously, it's easy.
That's
USC,
18,
UCLA,
right?
Oregon, Washington. This works out perfectly. Then you've got the Big Ten Midwest, Nebraska, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Iowa. You've got the Big Ten Central, Michigan, Michigan State, Indiana, Purdue, all in one geographic spot. The Big Ten East, Ohio State, Penn State, Maryland, Rutgers.
I love that. And then if you were to somehow be able to have those 4 work together into some sort of a playoff and that each one representing their division go into some 4-team playoff or some sort of thing. I mean, dude, yeah, you've got it all dialed in, Mark. What's fun college football for a reason.
Have you guys seen some people hyping Stanford to the Big 12 as if they would sit at a table with West Virginia voluntarily?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, the academic institutions out here are going to put some real brakes on a lot of these movements. A lot of college football fans would love to see Oregon play in a conference, where they can be competitive. The academic professors out here see it differently.
The academic professors have no say in this. Woo!
I mean, seriously, it's wild to see how much money the academic side brings in versus the athletic side. Of course, we're focused on the athletic side, but the academic side brings in a lot of cake too.
Yeah, they got guys who got successful off of the athletic program, like Phil Knight, donating to the academics as well. So, I mean,
sure,
helps.
But it's all about institutions, all about grant money, and it's all about basically putting yourself in the best position to be successful going forward. Is Oregon better off in this conference on the West Coast with a hodgepodge of other teams, or are they better trying to find some other dancing partner in the Midwest?
Get the bag.
Mike, I may need you to interpret again. We'll see here. Hayden with another super chat. We appreciate it, Hayden. Thank you so much for that. Oregon loses in unexpected ways a lot of their hype on ESPN.
So Oregon will go play teams that they're supposed to blow out, a la Stanford, and lose.
Okay, I got that part of it, but then when he lost me on a lot of their hype on ESPN.
So most people have blamed Oregon's hype on ESPN and Disney and Mickey Mouse and Game Day liking Oregon.
Connection there, but anyway,
it's been a weird connection for years.
Plus, TCU beat y'all in 2 bowl games with backups at the end of something run in the last decade.
I only remember playing them once.
I only remember the one. Vernon
to
Adams
be
got
fair,
hurt at halftime.
our backup lost the game. We were blowing them out.
He's mixing up TCU and Cal playing in the Cheez-It Bowl, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, we were blowing out.
I was heavily invested in the alcoholic beverages at halftime in the Alamo Bowl, only to watch the demise of the second half where you couldn't hike the freaking football. Goes into 3 overtimes and Oregon lost that one. Yeah,
Vernon Adams doesn't get hurt against Eastern Washington. The national scene was weak enough, and the Pac-12 was weak enough where they could have ran the table and made the playoff, and got blown out, but they would have been there.
I like the Horned Frogs, though. I got no disrespect for TCU. Horned Frogs are cool with me.
The 4 best G5. You already added the best G5 teams. Who else are you gonna add? Boise.
Oh, man. Our guy, Wide Right Natty Light. I believe that's Levi Stevenson. He runs the Iowa State SB Nation channel there. Appreciate you being here. People coming from all over the place here. Big 12 might go from almost dead to adding the 4 best G5. Okay, got that. And 4 solid Pac-12 schools in less than a year, which I guess meaning Utah, Colorado, Oregon, Washington.
Or the Arizona schools. The
Arizona.
way I would see it would be the Arizona schools would go down there, and the Colorado, Utah would go down there. Either way, that's solid. I mean, Arizona brings a lot to the
Arizona
table.
and Kansas.
I think people are really underestimating, again, all sports. Arizona is a great college basketball school. It's one of the best in the country. Sure. They sell out consistently. They've got a great fan base, and it gets you that media market of Phoenix, Tempe, down to Tucson. Don't sleep on Arizona as being a big pull as well.
I don't know about being a big pull, but they'll be a basketball. Don't make that,
Mike. I mean, seriously, demographics are changing. A lot of people have moved East Coast.
Matt, where's that graphic?
There's a lot of people in Arizona that were not there 20 years ago.
Mark, where's that fan base graphic? I need that again.
What I mean about Arizona is Arizona might not have the historical connection football-wise, but they do a great job in a bunch of their other sports. Their women's basketball program was just in the Final Four. Just played Stanford for the championship last year. Their softball team is great. They've got quality programs. And
the Pac-12 is good at everything.
ASU is the largest school in the country. ASU's 60,000 people. So I mean, you're talking about just the Phoenix area alone, the Phoenix metropolitan area. Not to get too geographic, but the Phoenix metropolitan area has shifted probably more than almost any geographical major metropolitan area in the country over the last 25 years. A lot of people have moved down to Arizona from Colorado, from California, from the East Coast. A lot of people have moved down in there.
Yeah. But I think, some people are underplaying it, but I think you're a little overplaying the other sports aspect because, yeah, Arizona's good at every other sport. So is every Pac-12 team for the most part. Oregon's got a profitable women's basketball program. That is rare in the country.
Sure.
Oregon's got the men's basketball, all the Olympic sports. Stanford has all the Olympic sports. USC, UCLA has basketball and all the Olympic sports.
And Mike, that's what I said about I think the Pac-12 is a strong conference on its own. I until yesterday, I thought the Pac-12 was totally fine. So across the board, I think there's really good schools out here. There's good athletic programs across the board. I think there's good football out here too. I just think that over the last couple, 3-4 years, they've had some trouble. They haven't been able to win some bowl games. They haven't been able to win some non-conference games. That in the media, like you said, social media is now ruling the thing. People overblow that too, and they think that the last 2 or 3 years is the end all be all of the whole thing. It's not.
Yeah.
What happens when Texas comes back? Texas hasn't been good for 3 or 4 years. What happens when they're a national conference champion again? They will be at some point. It's freaking UT. I mean, what are you talking about?
Mark Hayden is on one.
Yeah. So again, I was waiting for you, Mike, to help me out on this one.
No clue. Not a clue.
Post,
I scrolled to his last message.
Points.
I scrolled to his last message that wasn't that because that's what I was assuming he was saying. I'll look at my last post. But all it says was you guys are super fans, so you're overblowing Oregon's success. Mark doesn't like Oregon. Mark is not an Oregon fan.
Well, and I'm not overblowing.
And
Oregon.
Ryan's not a troll.
Yeah, no, I'm not even. I'm trying to be legitimately. I came in here saying to begin with, I don't even think the Big 12 or Big 10 wants Oregon.
To your point,
I tend to think Oregon is exactly at the level that it should be at. It's a quality program who's led their conference for the last decade. I don't think they're the greatest, but I think that they can be competitive on any conference in the country, football-wise, this year.
This Georgia guy is funny.
To defend both of you, and Ryan in particular, I can't think of a major college fan base that I believe would be on here being as humble about their place in college football that just beat Ohio State last year and still doesn't take any place that it's close to Ohio State. No, I don't know of too many.
Ohio State can't touch us.
Most people would say, you know what? We whipped them last year. We went to their place. We whipped them. We're better than them. And they would leave it at that.
No, Verdell is better than Ohio State.
The way the season ended, they would have boat raced Oregon at the end of the year in the Rose Bowl.
It's almost like I called what was going to happen that football season. It's crazy.
Yeah, I think it's just all about, like you said, the optics, the amount of college football eyes are totally different now. Everything's shifted. It's gone to a younger demographic. People are eating it up and chewing it up differently than they used to. It used to be something that kind of just looked at on the sports page on Sunday, and now people are just consuming it 24/7. I mean, here we are talking about it in the middle of freaking July. It's July 1st, right? And here we are talking college football. So proof's in the pudding, man. People are interested.
Yeah. If Oregon wasn't that good, this random team account on YouTube run by the voice of college football wouldn't have 400-something people chilling in it. Half of which don't like Oregon. Apparently, half of which will pay money to say how much they don't like Oregon.
I'm guessing like 10% of this audience is Oregon fans, and that's about it.
If that, right, exactly.
The Oregon fans in this audience are me and Mark on our burners.
Mikey G, what up? We got a couple out there.
That alliance was a handshake deal. Handshake deals don't count. Just like Notre Dame's, if we play football in a conference, we're joining the ACC. Handshake deal doesn't count.
The first comment I saw after that was, hate Oregon.
No cow, Matt. What? If I didn't know any better, I would assume that was Matt, my co-host.
That was awesome.
Matt is one of the most dry humor, funniest people on Oregon and Washington Twitter.
How many playoff wins for Oregon? 1.
More than you.
Any other Pac-12 school.
He got a USC shirt and a thing. More than you.
It's all good. It's just until any other Pac-12 school has 1, we're in the lead.
See, Mark lied. He said we're both humble. No, Ryan's humble. I'm not.
Yeah. No, Mike is hated by Oregon fans. We already
Yeah,
talked about this to begin with.
I'm public
He's
enemy
enemy
number
number
one.
Mike,
Well,
when
no,
I think
I'm
you, I
second
don't
behind
think
Don,
humble.
Chase,
You're
and
right.
Kate.
When I
There you
think
go.
Mike
Enemy number
Black, I'm
two.
not thinking humility. You're right. But
Don's number
I will
one,
say
right?
you tell it like it is, and you're not saying Oregon's this and that they're not.
If they want to see me not be biased towards Oregon, go watch the shows from this time last year. Mark and Ryan are trying to convince me that Oregon is gonna like make a bowl game, and I'm just like, nah, we're gonna suck. Guess who was right in the end? We sucked.
Well, and I agree with this take. Hawkeye Howard said, "Welcome to the Big Ten. Get your butts kicked." I think USC and UCLA are going to get served. I think USC is going to. Again, we'll see where they're at in 2 years. Lincoln Riley put the thing together. I think hopefully they'll be competitive.
Howard, I'd like to add the Hawkeyes are not the ones doing the butt kicking. I'm sorry to let you know.
I mean, they were a couple years ago here and there, but I don't think any school from the Pac-12 is as good as Ohio State. Even though Oregon last year beat Ohio State at Ohio State, if you would have gone back at the end of the year and played them in the Rose Bowl, Ohio State would have won. So in my mind, it's like the idea that, yes, you got that win. You can't take that away from Oregon. But at the same time, without that win, the Pac-12 has no wins at all against anybody in the last 10 years almost. It's absurd. So
Man,
the
this chat
Pac-12
loves
is just
Oregon and Washington.
dying on the vine.
This chat loves us, man. just loves the Ducks. For a team who sucks, we sure do get a lot of hate.
Yeah, usually it doesn't work out like that.
Yeah, normally if you suck, everyone likes you, a la Oregon State.
I mean, I would hate to be the Beavs right now. I talked to a couple Beav fans today on the golf course, and I just said, I'm sorry.
Do they really like? I mean, I think it could be a positive for Oregon State and Washington State because, yes, they do lose some of that money, but at the same time, you can win. For teams like that, winning games and building a fan base that exists would be really nice.
Yeah, it's just tough to not see those opponents come into those stadiums every single time. And
I'm
talking
you lose some
again about all sports. So, UCLA being able to come up to Gill Coliseum and play basketball. Now the Bees will be playing against, Weber State. I mean, it's going to be a little difficult.
I would like to add for Roger, the guy who is the USC fan dissing on Oregon in the chat. USC's heyday, 2000s, had a losing record against Oregon. Thanks. Love you guys.
Let's see. I've got UCLA at 2-2 against the Big Ten since 2010, last 10 years, and I got USC's 4-3. Haven't added up Washington and Oregon.
I'm arrogant? No way, guys. Come on. I love reading your chat as it goes.
Oh, it's number one ND fan, and people are getting irritated that aren't even in the fight. They're just kind of like on the sideline. And still, can we retract the comparison of Oregon and Oklahoma? This coming from a Notre Dame fan. Please, 2 conference titles in 10 years.
Yeah, he's the same one who said the 2010s were Oregon's best decade ever, which no,
2010 was the best Oregon football team ever. That's
no,
the
2012 was, but okay.
My point being is that again,
D'Anthony, make a block,
the
please.
comparison between Oregon and Oklahoma,
is real.
Call it what you want. Oregon does not have the history that Oklahoma has. It's
But
not
it's
at
history.
the same level of Oklahoma, but it's on the same level from the West Coast perspective. Interconference. Compare the conferences. The
Ryan, I
tops of
think-
all the conferences. That's all I'm saying.
Ryan, I think you disagree with me and Mark. Me and Mark think Oregon and Oklahoma aren't that far apart.
I don't either. I
Like
think
not just interconference. Like if you put them next to each other, they're not that far apart.
I agree, and I think that's not for just college football. I think that's across the athletic department.
So
I think there's a lot of really good sports coming out of Oregon.
To number one ND fans' defense, I will say that Oregon had a very uneven decade the last decade. They had the 4-8, they had the 7-6,
Mark Helfrich.
where Oklahoma just flattened the Big 12.
Right.
For sure.
But if we're going to line them up in week 1, I don't know who wins that game.
Roger, USC doesn't get a vote. Fox gets all the votes, and that's it. I don't think as they might be the one team who gets a vote, but I honestly don't even think Ohio State gets a vote. I just think it's the Fox big money decision makers who get the only vote that matters. Oregon's QB play has been trashed the last day. What?
Well, again, I think
QB?
call that what you want. I mean, I think Justin Herbert's pretty good. I think Marcus Mariota was pretty good in college. But more importantly,
Mark.
Them up together. I mean,
like you're talking about two of the best quarterbacks in the sport in the last decade.
I mean, Marcus
Like two of the top
was one of the best
15.
college quarterbacks during his time. And Justin Herbert is doing some pretty good things in the NFL.
Herbert was not good at Oregon. Herbert threw for 53 touchdowns and 4 picks. What do you mean he was not
He
good?
threw for 6 touchdowns at Cal as a freshman.
This revisionist history is crazy. Darren
No,
Thomas, Marcus Mariota, Vernon Adams was really good. Justin Herbert, exactly like Randall is saying. This man is taking advantage of Oregon's drug laws. Just saying.
Right. And hopefully Bo Nix will be good this year. Boom.
Hold your breath.
We'll see.
Speaking about quarterbacks and maybe the next great one at Oregon, Dante Moore.
No,
Mike's
you got to get him on campus first, Mark. The NIL deals, man.
On campus like 2 days ago. Not literally.
These are like these people ordering at a fast food restaurant can't figure out what to order. There's only 7 orders. It's burger and fries, and what kind of drink do you want?
Yeah, if I had to guess, I'm expecting a commitment after the 4th. But did you see him at the Elite 11? That was some ball placement, man. We ain't seen that in a few years. I didn't want to drop the F-bomb.
Yeah, well, like I said, I think Oregon will be fine.
Hayden.
Long term, Oregon will be fine.
Hayden.
They both have new head coaches. Okay.
I love you, Hayden. I love you. Hayden is like me, but Oklahoma, and I love it because I was always wrong when I'm tweeting. Oregon doesn't have a new head coach to get used to. Who's Miami's head coach? I thought it was our old head coach.
Right.
I thought this was about the comparison between Oklahoma and Oregon and them playing in week 1.
Yeah, that is. And then he said Oregon doesn't have a new head coach to get used to.
Yeah, that one blows my mind, but it's all good. Again, I think, everybody's got their opinions. It's all good to be hated out here. I don't care at all. No offense to you guys who think it matters, but, the ideology is that everybody's regional. You go to the school you go to the school your family goes to, you go to the school that's in your area, you support your school, and you think that school is good, whatever, because you support them. When they actually go out and win games, and then you can actually say, hey, that school is good, and they have a good track record, that's what we're trying to say out here, is I feel like at Oregon, we're good enough to be in the conversation. Doesn't necessarily mean we think we're the best. No way, shape, or form. But we're in the conversation.
This chat, you need to have us in more. You look at so many super chats from people wanting to tell us how bad our team is.
You guys are invited back anytime.
Anytime you want, Mark. Let's go again. All right.
Holy look! Hey, if y'all want to come tell me how bad I am on the Ducks and Dogs podcast, please do it.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I got my own YouTube channel. Come on over there, Sports Chef 503, man.
Tell us how much Oregon sucks. I appreciate it. I love you.
Appreciate you guys.
Oregon is a track school. Nobody is denying. Y'all are like some of the stuff y'all are saying. We are not denying.
It's called Track Town for a reason. We're proud of it.
And also, like, we have no national champ. We know we don't care at all. I don't care.
One of these days we might get one. That'd be awesome. And then you got to go back the next year, put the helmets on, and do it all over again.
So yeah, for those who bring up the no natty thing, if you list all the teams who have never won a national championship, who is the most likely to win one? If you find a team not named Oregon, I would be very proud of you.
Yeah.
And you could also make a pretty long list of programs that have technically won national championships.
That wish they were Oregon right now.
That wish they were Oregon right now.
Absolutely.
Exactly. Credit goes to Tony Altamore. He brought us the slides of the fan base statistics and so forth. He's saying here, Oregon would have stayed in permanent ban and exile from the Pac-12, Big Five, had it not been for their superstar all-time leading rusher alum, John McKay.
Former all-time leading rusher. Also, that sounds like a senator. Oh, John McCain. That's what I was thinking. Never mind.
No, John McKay, the great
McCain, legend.
USC legend. And we also had a super chat just come in from Mike. We appreciate that, Mike Luca. How to be an Oregon fan. Shrill about your sick unis. Play at 1 a.m. Don't win anything. Rinse and repeat.
You think our unis are sick? Aw.
Well, it's not 1 a.m. out here.
Listen. I live in Florida. It sucks watching play at 1 a.m. I'll agree with you there, Mike. I agree. We should play at big noon. Don't care.
I mean, it's all good. I mean, it's not 1 a.m. out here, you know.
Don't win anything.
We're playing at 7 o'clock if we're playing out here, and I know it sucks for you guys starting the game at 10 o'clock, but that's what they do. I mean, hell, they're doing that with the UFC. The UFC main event card starts at freaking 10 o'clock on the East Coast, too.
Yep.
If you want to be a sports fan, you want to see everything, move to the West Coast. It's pretty simple.
Move to Hawaii. Spend your entire day watching college
Hawaii's
football.
a little even earlier than that. You're at another 2 hours on that.
Or stay up till 3 o'clock in the morning like me.
Yeah. Hey, dude, you can't be the voice of college football without dedication, Mark.
The voice of not sleeping.
That's it. Yeah, I got to stay up, catch all the games. Then I got to make out my top 25 for the next morning. So I got to take it all in.
Oregon's number one.
It all in.
Let's go.
All right,
Listen,
guys.
Gentlemen, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you,
4th
Ryan.
To you guys.
Ryan, Sports Chat 503. Get on over there. Let me post it to the screen. Ryan, what do you got going on over there before you take off?
More chat about this thing. Whatever breaks, I'll talk about it. But, you know, I'm out in the summertime. I'm playing golf. We're at the beach. We're doing our thing.
Come tell them how much Oregon sucks.
Yeah. Tell me how much Oregon sucks. Yeah, Mark, can't thank you enough. Mike, you're the man. Love being with you guys. Mark, anytime, my line's open, bro.
Love it, Ryan. Thank you so much for everything.
Of course.
And Mike, where can people find you?
You know, probably getting dragged in the quote tweets, but at LaMike Black on Twitter. I also run the 5th quarter recruiting page, so I am diving into that. And you can check out our podcast, the Ducks and Dogs podcast, anywhere you listen to podcasts or watch them on YouTube. Just come tell us that we suck. Come tell me that I'm, you know, the Oregon fans love the Husky fan on that podcast and hate me. It's a weird podcast. Just come vibe and have fun and equally hate BYU with us.
For sure.
Coming up in just about a half hour, we've got our West Virginia live show from 8 to 9 Eastern. And then right after that, I'm taking calls. So
you're the man, Mark.
Working. Ryan,
can't thank you enough for what you do for college football, Mark. You're the man.
Thank you, Ryan. That was a beautiful shot you gave us the entire time there with the flag behind you, just a picturesque. We don't get to see, you know, a nice looking outdoor shot very often. Ryan, you're the best. Appreciate you being here. We'll talk soon. Mike, thank you so much. See everybody at 8 o'clock Eastern time, West Virginia Live.